Conversations. It's May 21st, 2014, and today we're in the studio with Claire Uhlick, a visual artist here in Edmonton, Alberta. I've wanted to talk with Claire for some time because I see in her work an incredible passion for art. From a young age, she has always been interested in expressing herself artistically, and because of that interest, studied fine arts at the University of Grant MacEwan and finished with a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Alberta. In her young career, she has already displayed her works at a number of national and international exhibitions, and she has completed 2 permanent art commissions, one for the University of Alberta and another for the city of St. Albert. The first time I experienced Claire's art was when I had the chance to see her permanent display at the University of Alberta. And since then, I've had the opportunity to attend many of her exhibitions, and I'm always amazed at the diversity of her work. So join me now as Claire and I talk about her art. Welcome to Conversations.
Thanks, Terry.
I love being in an artist's studio. There's always so much stuff scattered about. Lots of materials for their work, some finished works and some unfinished. But the thing I like most about being in a studio is the feeling of ideas in the air, the potential of creation. And as we sit here in your studio, those feelings are definitely in this room. I'd like to start by maybe you telling me about your decision to become an artist. Was it an immediate decision, or was it something that developed over time?
Definitely something that developed over time. I mean, I always worked in my parents' studio. They're potters, and so I would make like little pinch pots or like throw something on their pottery wheel, or like I loved drawing and painting in school, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school, and I thought about pursuing a career in arts, but I was also thinking about, I really liked math, actually, and so I was thinking about engineering, and then,
oh my goodness.
I know, it's crazy. It doesn't actually really make much sense, but I had to go back and finish physics. I didn't take physics, I took the other sciences, and I took calculus as an option, just for fun, and then, so I would have to upgrade that one course. So then I thought, well, I'll apply to Grant MacEwan because I really liked the idea of the program for their art fundamentals. And so I did, and then I got in. So I decided to go into the arts, and I haven't looked back since. So yeah, but it developed over time, I think. I've always loved art, though.
So you mentioned your parents. So I'm wondering if, as you were growing up, they give you some influences that may have shown up later as you were going through your education, that maybe that sort of helped you and fueled you to go on this artistic path.
They both stayed at home and were potters at home, so I got to see what it was like to be in an art studio all the time, something I took for granted for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Just that was what they did for a living. But they also really encouraged me to make art and to pursue art, and drove me to watercolor lessons in the city, and were very supportive in that way. But also I think they like instilled in us this appreciation for things handmade, like mm-hmm. that beauty of something handmade. And our house was full of work from artists, like paintings of friends of theirs had done, or handmade blankets, or like sort of everything was there was definitely a like strong handmade presence in the house.
Yeah.
And so I learned to appreciate eating food off handmade pottery and drinking coffee out of my dad's mugs, and I still think that coffee tastes better out of one of his mugs than anybody else's. So yeah, well, I think if you grow up with that kind of mindset, then you learn to appreciate kind of the craftsmanship and the care that people put into their art. So,
and that feeling that you got from them is obviously in the work that you do today. It's sort of the same feeling that they have given you in the things that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mean, this is probably something I learned in art school as well, but I think craftsmanship is very important in how something's made, the care that you put into it, and even if I'm using a different medium than they use, I still think there's a important sense of like taking the care basically and appreciation in the work that I make. And I did spend some time with my dad doing sort of an apprenticeship. It wasn't an official apprenticeship, but I was just finishing my my degree, and I had 2 electives in a year, and I took the whole year to finish them and spent the rest of the time in my dad's pottery studio making pots. And I had a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. But my dad told me after the few months I spent with him that I was a much better painter than I was potter, and not to quit my day job. And so I still think painting is probably my most strongest medium, maybe, but I do enjoy working with clay, and I have made some installations with clay, and it's been part of my professional art career too. So it's definitely stuff that stuck with me for sure.
Yeah. So one of the things I think about as an artist's brain is bubbling with ideas, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, how do you sort through all those ideas to come up with that one idea that you want to pursue for one of your works?
That's a hard question. I don't think there's ever enough time in a day or in somebody's life to pursue all their ideas. But as you can see in my studio, I have lots of different things going on and projects started. And I think the best way for me is that I just start a bunch of things, sometimes all at once. And then I pick the one that's going the best, or that's, and sometimes I come back to other ideas, and sometimes I don't. But I mean, unless like process is a really important part of my work, and unless I've started something or began the project, I can't really tell if it's working. So sometimes I try things out, and then see where it goes from there.
So you talked about the process, and that's what I'd like to talk about right now. And the process, you were saying that you work, sort of pick a number of ideas, but obviously at some point in time, a direction starts to happen, right? So when you do find that particular focus on an idea that you want to pursue, take me through the process you go through from that point until the end. What happens during that time?
Let me think. That's hard. Well, I guess I can kind of answer that more generally, because it probably depends on the body of work or the idea that I'm working through. So, well, I guess, let me think. So I guess I'll start I'll just start producing stuff. So whether it's painting, I'll make a bunch of paintings and see where it goes from there. I think an important thing, at least in my career or my experience, is that I set work aside for a little bit. It sort of needs time to, for me to process it after I make it. And I think it's also really important because it's easy to overpaint something or overdo something. So if I make something, set it aside, and start working on another project or the same thing but in a different way, if it's a series or something, I might work on another image in the series, then I can stop and reflect on the work that I've already done. And then that sort of brings me to the next stage, whether it's editing that work or continue like painting on it, on the going back and repainting stuff or whatever. And then at the end, then I would, I guess, curate my own work, decide which ones are working, which ones sort of more clearly develop my idea. And then some work never gets shown to anybody. And sometimes I rip the canvas off and roll it up and hide it somewhere in my studio for years.
Yeah.
And then I'll unroll it one day and go, oh, and roll it back up again. Or sometimes I don't really know when it's done until it's on the gallery wall. And then I think, oh yeah, then it's done. But having something done, that's a hard thing
Yeah,
to
well,
know.
that was sort of my next question, because you go through that process, all these iterations, and how do you know when it's complete? When you can actually step back and put all the paint brushes away, and just say, yes, it's done.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're there at that point?
That is the hardest question, really. Tara, I can't even tell you. I think some of it is intuitive. You just feel like I need to stop. Something's telling me, so you stop. Some of it is I can't paint on this picture any longer. I'm gonna go crazy. Yeah, but I think it is kind of an intuitive thing, and that's why I think it's so important to have that pause, to have that sort of time for it to incubate, to leave it on the wall, and to give it some space, and then return to it. And if something isn't feeling right, then you continue to work on it. And but I mean, in a sort of more general body of work, I mean, sometimes I feel like I could work on one theme forever with like continually changing it in different ways, and so
Right.
when is that done? I don't know.
Yeah.
It could go on forever, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So you've come up with this idea for one of your works. How do you decide on, let's say, the physical form of that work? Is it a painting, or is it a sculpture, or what sort of process do you go through to sort that all out?
I think it depends on it depends on so many things. It depends on the context of like what the work is about, I think, mostly, and then trial and error maybe. But painting is like was my major at the University of Alberta, and it's still one of my favorite mediums, so I probably feel most comfortable in working with paint. But I've done like some of the other media that I've used is I did a site-specific tile installation for Service Place Aquatic Center, and I mean, obviously paint wouldn't have worked for that, like in a very practical way, because it was inside a pool on a cinder block wall, and it had to be archival, and it had to withstand the humidity of the pool, and so sometimes practical reasons are what trumps other different media. So, and I've worked on sort of a collaborative piece for the University of Alberta, and we were working with wood and steel because it was going to be there. It's a permanent work of art, and we were trying to make something three-dimensional, and so
Right.
it depends on lots of things.
Yeah. Well, for me, your free-falling painting series is absolutely amazing. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the best work you've done to date. They're all filled with incredible emotion. And I wonder if you could share with me how that series came to be.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I actually feel like this is the strongest work that I've ever done as well. So that's nice to hear somebody say that. And another artist. It's always nice to hear from another artist too. Well, part of that is the story of my life. And part of it is that I got the opportunity to be the artist in residence for Youth Empowerment and Support Services. So the contract with them was started in the fall of 2012, and was a 6-month position where I got to work with at-risk youth who access the the agency, and also have a chunk of time that I could work on my own body of work. So at the time I had been I was doing, I don't know, commissions, landscape commissions, but I was really looking for, because I hadn't really had an opportunity for like a concentrated period of time to work on my own stuff since I finished my BFA. And also what had just happened recently is my twin brother had committed suicide. So I was feeling like I needed to do sort of a different body of work, and I just felt like I needed to explore some of the stuff that was going on with me at the time, and some of the feelings that I was having, and And so I knew going into this artist in residence program that I wanted to start a new body of work, but I didn't know what it would look like at all. So, but the advantage of an artist in residence program is you have that time to experiment and make whatever you can. So I think the body of work kind of developed partly because I was planning to start this new series of something, and partly because I got this opportunity to work in this really neat space that had this crazy energy going on. Right. And so I was influenced by my surroundings, I'm sure, and the youth that were in the building and some of the relationships that I made there. And also it was that kind of opportunity to really reflect on how I was feeling and really present it in a visual way. And it isn't a narrative about my brother. It's more they're images of a figure falling, and sometimes you can't even really tell that the figure is falling, and they're self-portraits. And I was really trying to capture sort of this feeling that I had where I had lost control of things that were happening in my family and in my life. And so sort of this sort of precarious balance between control and lack of control, and sort of reflecting on what control we really have in our lives and that kind of thing. So that was what the work was based on.
Yeah. So when the works were completed, how did that make you feel? Did you was it something that sort of gave you some sort of answers to what was going on in your life at that time?
I don't know. Sometimes I think my paintings are questions. There's never answers, Terry. It's always questions. So I think, like, for me, the opportunity was kind of question what was happening and question this life and question these feelings I was having and question this sort of this strange balance. And I was also thinking a lot at the time about memories and dreams and imagination. Some of the dreams I was having, but also just this idea of, I guess, this sort of ambiguity we have to memories sometimes when we, like, sort of they appear out of nowhere in our minds and that kind of thing. Now I've forgotten the question. Going off into my own little world.
No, I was just, just to bring it back, I'm just wondering if you reached any resolution.
Oh, right. That's what the question was. Yeah. Did I reach... I don't know. I still feel like, even though I started, I guess, like a little over a year ago now, I feel like there's still questions. So no, I guess I haven't had any, I guess there aren't, not answers.
Yeah.
Just,
do you think there's more to come out of that series of paintings?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the longer I work on it, it's one of those things that I understand more. So
it's very interesting how you're using your art to come to grips with all of these feelings that you're having. I think that's very interesting. And artistically to bring that out in a painting is kind of mesmerizing to me. I mean, I don't know whether I would want to even attempt that. So to do that is pretty incredible. You mentioned that you were the artist in residence for the Youth Empowerment and Support Services organization. Just tell me a bit about, what your responsibilities are, and I assume that you get a lot of joy out of being involved with the people there. So tell me a bit about, yes.
So my job is to, like in the bare bones, I guess, facilitate art classes for the youth who access the Armory Resource Center, but also, has some residential programs, so also do art programs for those youth as well. And also then, like I said before, to work on some of my own work as well at the same time. I also organize an art show for the youth. But really my job is to inspire the youth to be creative. And a lot of the times the clients that come in, they haven't finished high school, or they've never had the opportunity to take an art class. So I hear often, I've never painted, I don't draw, I can't do this. I hear that so often. I can't. So my job is kind of to trick them into painting or drawing or creating something with me in a class, and basically show them that they can, because I really believe that art is for everybody, and sometimes my job is really just to convince them of that,
to steer them in
to
the right
steer
direction.
them into the fact that art is for everyone, and you don't have to be, there isn't necessarily talent. I mean, there is talent, but it's not, you can still make beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes sometimes they're incredibly talented, and they just don't believe in themselves. So
Right.
part of that is really working on their self-esteem and self-worth, and giving them an opportunity that they may not have had. And I also think that art can be a really therapeutic activity, and sometimes just like drawing something very simple can be like the first moment that they really stopped and kind of had a chance to kind of settle down a little bit that day, and it can be very relaxing as well. So I think that's an important part of my job. And so we experiment with chalk pastels and acrylic paint and any material under the sun. We put paint on our feet and dance around on a giant canvas to noises that other clients were making and trying to interpret them. And so we do all kinds of things, really crazy stuff. And so it's really about having fun. And I like to bring in examples of local artists, or sometimes there's a TV on the main floor. I'd like to show images of artists' websites just to show what art can be.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, for me in high school, when I was a teenager, I believed, like, you know, when somebody says art, I think, oh, painting or drawing. You just don't really think outside the box. You can't imagine that it's this sound installation. Like, what does that even mean? So I like to bring in wild stuff and show them as well. We do a morning check-ins where we kind of get together in the mornings at the Armory building, and everybody says something, and then that's a good opportunity for me to bring in some wild work of art to show them that art can be anything, and doesn't have to be something two-dimensional or just made with paint or whatever. So,
Well, I remember going to one of the exhibits. The students, I guess I could call them, showed their works. It was really neat to be there. I made a point of talking to them. And they were so proud of their painting. Yeah. And it was very cool to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To sort of go through that transition from, you know, not wanting to do anything to, you know, standing tall and proud, and that's my painting. It was pretty neat.
That's probably one of the most remarkable parts of this job for me, is to have the youth, is to see the youth react to their art in this gallery, because they come in with such, well, just low self-esteem, really, and to give them any little sense of pride or self-worth at all is pretty remarkable. And sometimes, like, I frame up all the work for them in just IKEA frames. And I think even sometimes, like, right up until the art show, they don't believe me. Like, no, they still don't think their art is good, or it's not worth anything. And I always get the youth to price their art, and then the money, if their work sells, the money goes right to them, and they get all the cash. And usually, sometimes they'll price things at like $1.69. I'm like, I'm going to put that in a frame. The frame's worth more than that. You can't price it for $1.69. But I try, like, within reason to let them price it. And I had a client who priced something at $10 or whatever is what she wrote.
Right. Okay.
And then I kind of thought, oh boy, I couldn't convince her otherwise. So I framed it up, and then before the art show, she was in the building one day, and I tracked her down, and I brought her down to the basement and showed her work in this clean, professional-looking frame, and she was
stunned.
And she was stunned, and her jaw dropped, and then I convinced her to up it $20 or something, and she agreed, and she's like, "Oh, okay, sure, somebody would buy it, maybe." And it's not the frame, but it's just that if they get to see it presented in this professional way, and it's clean looking, and it's, I don't know, it has this sort of intrinsic value that they can finally sort of see and appreciate, like, oh, wow, somebody spent time framing that, and and then in the gallery it just looks more professional, and they can really see the value in their work, which is pretty cool. So that's a great opportunity.
No, I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing there. I'd like to ask, as an artist, what drives you to keep moving forward?
Because I love it. Because I really love everything about it. I don't really know what else to say other than that. I think I can't imagine my life without art in it at all. I don't know what I would do. And as an artist, I think all artists, you're never bored. Like, there's never one point in your life where you'll ever be bored, because it's just sort of a constant that...
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about before. Your brain is bubbling, right?
Yeah.
With ideas.
Yeah.
You're always thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can't imagine my life without it.
Yeah. Now, let's go into the future 10 years from now. Where would Claire like to be in 10 years as far as her art is concerned?
No, I don't really know. I think, and maybe that's the best part, is that I don't know. And I really think, I mean, for me as an artist, I know that my life influences my art, because, like, how could it not, really?
Of course.
I mean, my environment influences what I can create and how I create it, and when there are restrictions in your life, sometimes that makes you more creative. So I really have no idea. I mean, I hope that I'm still painting, but I wouldn't mind dabbling a little bit more into 3D, and maybe doing some installation work a bit more. But yeah, I don't know. I could see the body of work I'm working on right now continuing for a while, in some form or another.
Yeah.
But my cat's going to be in the podcast.
No problem.
It's a little lonely.
So, Claire, thank you.
You're welcome.
For
Thank
sitting
you.
down and talking about your passion.
Thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
Take care.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. I hope you can join me for my next conversation, when I'll be talking to Ryan Parker, an actor, musician, and photographer here in Edmonton, Alberta.